All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
My Hero Academia, Season 5, Episode 14. Work studies.
Work studies that are forced, compelled even by the government.
Mandatory.
Yeah. But that means that we'll get Todoroki, Bakugo, Deku, and Endeavor potentially all in the same place.
Yep.
And maybe we could get also Hawks to join this group of four.
That's
Then
true.
we have a serious party.
Oh boy. But we also had Christmas, and that went along fairly well. We had some words of warning from Mountain Lady, or Mountain Lady. One of the two. Yeah. Yeah. But we also have that serious stuff with the villains, because Shigaraki kind of apparently did a big thing.
Shigaraki has not been sleeping while we're all doing training and work studies and all that stuff. And this all happened a while ago.
Yep.
So there's kind of this like meanwhile kind of storyline that's just kind of looming there in the background. And I like that as a way to build up menacing stakes and like the feeling of dread, because when you're playing like a tabletop RPG and the protagonists are out doing the thing, it's always that unnerving thing when you're like, wait, there are enemies out there getting stronger.
Right.
And we're not stopping them.
We might not be keeping up with them.
No, we might not. No. Because they made a point of saying that the Deka City incident was much worse destruction-wise than the Kamino Ward one, which, remember, that was All For One that did that. So there's a little bit of a comparison that's being made. So
and I'm just spitballing here, but I don't think any of Class 1A or 1B really is on the level of One for All, or All for One. Yeah.
I mean, there's one that, recently got a bit of a hint of a power boost, though.
That's true.
And it's a bit timely, if you think about it.
A bit timely and a bit insufficient in my mind.
That's why it needs to ramp up now. Probably go as fast as possible. So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. Whoa.
Okay.
Whoa.
So
we just got a lot this episode.
We did.
Also, quick disclaimer here, y'all. This is the first time ever, but we did a redo of the discussion that we actually already recorded. What you're seeing here is the second go at a discussion here.
Because we apparently missed something in the episode.
Yeah, we completely misunderstood Hawks' whole thing of going to what is essentially a meeting with members of the Meta Liberation Army.
Right, because basically we originally thought, are we gonna do this in like a link, the unlisted link?
Yeah. We'll have an unlisted link in the discussion if you want to see what our original discussion was.
In summary, more or less, we got the Meta Liberation Front mansion hideout place mixed up with the thinking that they were a branch of the commissioner, like
for
people,
like the heroes and stuff.
For the heroes and stuff, and that
because there were heroes basically that were part of the thing. It was a whole little confusion thing there, and it was weird because usually in the anime, like they'll have like a title thing of like where we are or something.
Or this is I think where the reason why it didn't end up happening, because if you see like Shigaraki in the League of Villains and they're at some random bar, you don't need to know the name of the bar, right? It's like this is the League of Villains doing their thing. Right. But because there's intrigue and like different sides, and we haven't met all these characters, or one of them we had met.
How many times
but they
Hawks
were
is
a regular hero,
with different groups and stuff.
Exactly, it gets very complicated. And I know for myself, I was very much excited to see all the ways in which Hero Society would overstep its bounds in an attempt to deal with this uprising. So I thought that all like the information network and stuff was actually Hero Society going all like Big Brother or something.
But it's actually
just
different.
Them keeping tabs on Hawks and spying on the heroes.
Yeah, and how many factions is Hawks basically needing to be in bed with, James Bond style, in order to actually pull off what he's doing for the heroes?
Right.
Which it's funny because we mentioned this in the original discussion, but it makes us trust him implicitly.
Yep.
Like, actually, so much so because of a couple things here. And it's a really cool episode for Hawks as a highlight character. He has so many groups, people, and just all this stuff pulling on him, and he has an emotional connection to Endeavor. Because he's his biggest fan. He wants to see him bring Hero Society out of this really weird state where there's all this, like, well, you all need to be doing, like, a crazy good job, and just everything needs to be always, like, hard, go,
and
go.
It's black and white heroes and villains, when villains sometimes it's just, oh, you were born with kind of a dangerous quirk.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's...
do we support the disenfranchised as heroes?
Yeah, can we really call ourselves heroes? And and I love it. I love the fact that MHA gets into this kind of stuff. I'm a big fan of, and it feels very similar in a lot of ways to and I mentioned it in the other discussion, but he feels very similar to Night Eye in that he's the one that looks up to the current number one hero, but he's also like the new character that gets introduced kind of for the arc, to be like that perspective character liaison to the audience, and of like, what's the conflict, right? Because
it's done so much better, though, because we have had him introduced long before this, too.
We've had him introduced before it. He's just, in general, a very interesting character, but also, too, the kind of conflicts that we're getting into in this arc are very complicated.
Very complicated.
Because we've got Intrigue. Yeah. That's not something you would expect from MHA.
Intrigue is a very different style of things than what they were doing with Night Eye, which was a much more, like, kind of brother or father-son kind of dynamic with All Might.
Yeah, and the whole fate conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas in this one here, you can very much tell that Hawks is set up as like a weird alternate future of what any of the kids from UA could become.
Sure.
Or might have become if their situation was slightly different. If they had been, instead of selected in like the, oh, you get special treatment, Todoroki or Momo Yarozu. I think I might have butchered her name there. But because, well, we could use you. Right. And you're also in a bad place, maybe family life-wise. So we can
really say no.
Yeah, like, we can kind of take away your choice here and rescue you. Yeah, exactly. So I'm really excited at the plot kind of mechanics-based journey that Hawks is going to go on at navigating this whole mess, but also the emotional one with regards to his past and, of course, Endeavor.
Yes.
Now that the boys are being brought into this mix, though, Deku and his just big brain could definitely help Endeavor maybe piece a little bit more about what Hawks was trying to, like, secretly communicate to him.
Although, thankfully, Endeavor did clue into it, which is good. Because that's one of those things where... almost like the whole thing of the, wait, where is this location and all that stuff? Who are we dealing with? That would be so awful for Hawks when he's like, oh, I've been passing out these books to heroes all over the world because this message needs to get out.
Not the world, the nation.
Okay, the nation, right? Yeah. Because it's important that this stuff gets out, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh yes, the second part. I just look at the second half of the highlighted bits. That's some interesting philosophy. I didn't know, you were interested in this kind of stuff, Hawks. Okay, good read. No, but. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Hawk's little panic thing of like, was I too roundabout?
Right, exactly. But the fact that, someone as seemingly innocuous, I don't know if that's the right word, seemingly harmless as Sliding Hero is secretly a part of this, meta liberation army. Yeah, that's okay. All right.
Now, let's get into that here. So, Hawks' situation is one where he is the secret agent for Hero Society's like higher ups, basically. Let's just call them that. We don't really know anything about them other than they represent a small subsection of the general Hero Society kind of
but it's
authority structure.
Yeah, it's very separate from the UA like teachers and stuff and the regular pros though.
And they're probably higher up in terms of authority.
Yep.
That's the main thing we can get at here. But he's being used to get inside the League of Villains.
Right.
And get connected to them in some way. That's one whole angle there.
And that's the most straightforward one, I feel like.
Right.
Like,
it's
okay,
just,
find the
Dobby,
Nobus.
I'll do another thing for you. Yep, sure. And that's the whole thing of what they were teasing with the Best Genius little newspaper in the previous episode.
Yeah.
But then, also, the Meta Liberation Army. There's no Dobby or Shigaraki or, Twice or anyone else from the League of Villains there. There's a new character, if anything.
Yeah.
A person with a laptop.
Sure.
Being kind of mysterious and stuff.
And he seemed just like someone a bit more in the know for that group than the Sliding Hero.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, he didn't seem like the top guy necessarily.
And if you have an army of 100,000, by the way, you need a command structure for that.
So, you need a super hierarchical, crazy amount of structure.
Yeah, like
you need to break things down into the hundreds almost.
Yep. The fact that they're able to just have a mansion that is just one dedicated cell-based whatever, where
probably
they can,
not
where
even
they
a
can,
big deal spot, really.
Right? Probably not even that big of
just
a deal
front.
for a spot. Yeah, just a front. But the thing is that they can talk about stuff fairly openly there. Mm-hmm. That is a very big deal, because that means that, one, our eggs aren't all in one basket here. True. And two, we have the pull and the power to be able to have this be completely separated from the rest of Hero Society.
It's also a nice little subtle way to say that the heroes that we'll start to notice now that are playing a little bit more seriously around the whole topic of what Endeavor brings to the table are probably on our side when it comes down to it. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Oh,
but
boy.
that being said, what we have here on the Meta Liberation Army front is that Hawks is already in their midst.
Yep.
In the little flashback we got,
deep.
he was starting to realize that their conversations between him and the League through Dobby were being watched by the Meta Liberation Army that he was probably already in at the time.
Sure.
Which begs the question, what is Hero Society's response to the Meta Liberation Army as a growing problem?
It's an excellent point.
It's probably very, very much a...
fight fire with fire?
Well, no, we're working on that.
Sure.
We're developing constantly an ever-evolving solution.
Right. And hence why there was the whole thing that Hawk said at the end of the episode. That was kind of like the confirmation of those people were the Meta Liberation Army.
Yeah, exactly.
Hero Society doesn't want the greater society to know about that this is going on, or even the higher-ups don't even want the heroes to know what's going on.
Because there's so many of them that are just a part of the army.
You don't want the enemy to know what you know. You don't want society to start a panic or anything, or make the enemy seem bigger than they are, which then makes people side with them. All sorts of things, right?
And all this is just his burden to bear. Now, he is thankfully found a way to sneak out a little bit of info that can give the right people the warning. Now, this is the part that's crazy, is that based on Hawks' info, he has to be certain that the people he's giving this to are the kind of people that he can actually trust with it.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, giving it to kids is probably no big deal. But that means a lot.
Kids can be dumb.
Because not just kids can be dumb, kids can be underestimated.
Yep.
Kids can be, well...
We know there's a spy in 1A.
Or at least
we're pretty sure.
They're pretty sure.
That is a seeded plot point that is probably going to come to fruition.
Exactly. In some ways, it's almost a way of contextualizing that whole idea by saying Hero Society is so suspicious of its internals that they're even suspecting there being a 16-year-old basically or a 15-year-old of being a spy. And
which totally makes sense.
Well, yeah, it totally makes sense, but it's like, is it that bad that they actually are panicking about that?
And how do you deal with that? Where do you draw lines of what you're willing to do and what not to do? Because if one of the things that MHA has been building up to for a long time now is that these kids will need to go out into the world and into society, whether they're ready or not.
As adults or not.
Right, exactly. Yeah. They will become adults at some point, probably before they actually graduate.
Yep.
And that's what will make them heroes among heroes, right? Because
the new generation.
Exactly. That where even with what they've signed up for of becoming heroes, and Mineta being like, yeah, I want to be popular with the girls and stuff, right? Well, what happens when all of a sudden you're tasked with going to war, right?
Yeah.
And you're being forcibly...
Are you even okay with that?
Right.
Will you throw in the towel as being a hero because you're like, that's not what a hero is?
Yeah.
I'm not a soldier.
Who knows, right? Yeah. We're keepers of the peace, not soldiers. But it's a good question. And then if you're going to have kids fight your battles, for you because you're undermanned or whatever, what are you going to do when there's kids on the enemy side too?
Yeah, what are you going to do when your parents are basically like, no, come home. You're not this, and yet you kind of want to be in the fight.
And that's something where then you have to start making an adult decision for yourself, right? Of what you're going to do. But then you don't really know what you're in for.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Can you even make an adult decision as a kid like that? in some ways, it's basically the picture of what Hawks has become. He is 22. They made a whole point of being like, look, he's only 6 years older than us.
Right.
He thinks about things completely different from us.
Right. I love the part where Bakugo was like, I was faster than you.
Yeah.
And I could just see, and I mentioned this in the other discussion, but I could just see in Hawks' head him just being like,
Kid.
Yeah, that's great, kid. If you were, wonderful. Good for you. Right? And I hope that that's all you ever have to concern yourself with.
Right.
Whether you're faster than me. Not about any of the other
All
shit
that other stuff,
that I have to deal with. Because let me tell you, it gets crazy.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the villains do have kids. That was a nice little thing to remind her. Toga is a child.
Yep.
So-
Well, a lot
so
of
it's-
them might not have parents because of tragic things that happen or something. Like,
Yeah. That's still a thing that's probably just all too common. And I am really excited for the story to get that large scale, not in terms of the numbers, because the number of 100,000 is arbitrary.
Sure.
It's just the idea that
really big.
it's so big that you can't actually fight a war against it.
Exactly. Yeah, like that, and that's one of the things I'm curious to see how they explore because in a lot of ways, this is a much more timely kind of thing to bring up than or relevant. That's a better word for saying it. A lot more relevant than the whole bad guys versus good guys, heroes, villains, and all that stuff. Right. That a lot of that stuff came out of like old times where it's like, all right, world wars and stuff. Is the world going to
simplify the conflict because we're
because
gonna
is
be
the world
killing
going to
millions.
exist, in 5 years, right?
Yeah,
the planet could just be, lifeless.
Yeah, we keep launching those nukes. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly, right? But now that's
Things are a little bit more nuanced with regards to the fact that, well, on some level, there's wars constantly going on, but they're smaller. They're much more subtle and much darker in some ways. The
argument can definitely be made for that.
Because it's where people are okay with a little bit of war,
right?
As long as it's one that, I'm on the winning side, so
sure. And most of the
really
time, let's be real, that's for the most part what humans care about, right? It's not about the world as a whole. That's too big. It's about their world, right? And that's why you have the disenfranchised, and why you have a situation like this, and why I'm really glad to see them try and tackle it.
Yeah.
Now,
it's so much good potential here.
That's a really hard topic to tackle.
Yeah.
So I have no idea how MHA is going to do this, but
at the very least, we can guarantee that the kids are going to be able to find their way through it.
Even if it's through a post-apocalyptic looking landscape
like in
we
the
got
OP.
in the OP, which was
by
fantastic,
the way, oh my God, that OP is one of the best ones we've had thus far. I don't know how it tracks against that specific one in season 2 that's my favorite, but this one is really good, and apparently it's from the band that did the second Vinland Saga OP,
which was
wonderful. Of course, we love it. Oh my God! The ED was also quite good.
The ED was fun.
It had a specific bit though that was like
with Hawks.
It was the Hawks as a kid
with the window
I don't know if it was a window. It might have been a mirror.
Oh sure,
but it was just shattered glass basically. And then Endeavor's flames come through, light it up, and then Hawks grows out of it. And there's this idea of, Hawks is similar to a lot of characters we've met thus far, but I can't wait for the Deku Hawks parallel.
Ooh.
Like the part where Hawks is like the biggest fan, of Endeavor.
Well, right, yeah, he does have that fanboy energy, and in a lot of ways he's the if he's kind of the, I almost want to say the martyr, but that's not quite right. But the one that ends up getting torn apart by this conflict, like truly, because it didn't end well for Night Eye,
I have a good word.
What?
He's actually the Harbinger. So usually a
Does
Harbinger.
have wings.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Usually the Harbinger is the one that's like the vanguard of the oncoming army, basically saying, "Cry out!"
The glass guy.
The glass guy.
Yeah.
He's the typical
prophet of the entire.
Yeah, he's the typical doom and gloom NPC that is actually giving you straight from the author foreshadowing. That's really obvious.
Cthulhu is coming.
Right, the end is nigh. And you're like, oh, the end of the series is coming. Or
Cool, so
like
I know what to expect when we hit level 17.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But Hawks is actually, I think, the harbinger of the new age of heroes. The ones that are called upon to do too much, too young,
sure,
and yet somehow rise to the occasion.
Well, and the thing is
in
that
a way that might
not be good, because
good.
even if you win, you might not win, and that's the whole thing with war, right? Is that the best outcome that you can get from war is that you can
ends
hopefully
very quickly.
Well, sure, and that hopefully you avoid the worse outcome, because like, you know, that's usually why people justify going to war. Something much worse is going to happen.
It is possible to have a war without anyone dying. I will just say that. But that is almost impossible.
It's almost antithetical, right?
No, I know, but that's the point, is that would be the best outcome.
Sure.
Is that everyone gets what they want.
Yeah.
Nobody dies.
And
it's over quickly.
And for that reason, that's not the motivation behind war.
Nope.
But that's why there is war, because that just doesn't really happen very often, right?
Yeah.
If so, then great, you keep it to civil discourse and conversation,
which is that's the basis of like, you know, democratic free speech and everything.
Yeah, exactly. You keep things out of tribalism and be like, hey, let's
talk about this.
Let's talk about this, right?
And apparently that's not necessarily on board with regards to the heroes and stuff, because they've let it probably get to the point where there's 100,000 of them.
Right.
They've probably been watching them.
And also, if there's an army of 100,000, that means there's probably about another 100 for every one of those people in the army that are just people that agree and are like cheering this movement on, right? And it's just the outlier percentages, you know, like of that group that then is like, all right, we're going to stake our lives on this and violent action.
Because even the 100,000 being the army necessarily, it could only really be 500 of them that are actually militant and will go out and do aggressive things in a way that could actually hurt or kill people.
But I get the feeling
that it's not the case, because that is definitely getting larger of whatever that number is.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The longer this goes on without diplomatic engagement, which is why I am extra excited about Hawks now. Like, he's skyrocketing to the top of like my favorite like plot character list, if that makes sense for this show. And if this is all happening slightly even independent of what's going on with the League of Villains.
Sure.
Meaning that this is the tidal wave that was when Stain's little wave hit the shelf. And this has been building.
Right. Like, and
beyond even before Stain, but Stain was like Stain was the true harbinger.
Stain was Stain was the harbinger or the prophet almost of like this is
what's coming. You all heroes here, and the speaking of him like almost like a zombified corpse of like, I must speak this message.
Yep.
He was just trying to warn you all. You weren't listening to the people, and now this is coming.
Right.
And Hawks is now the harbinger thematically, just because he's like, you didn't listen.
Right.
It's here.
There's a part of
months.
me. Yeah.
You can't prep for that. That's just,
In a lot of ways, I'm more excited about this meta liberation army than I am about the League of Villains itself.
Sure.
The reason why I'm interested in the League of Villains is because of Shigaraki.
Shigaraki.
Right? And because Deku needs to save even his heart, and that I'm still set that's going to be where this series ends, and that'll be amazing, right? But as far as like the Shigaraki is the percent of the percent, you know, where it's the meta liberation army isn't enough. Now it's just let's just torch everything. You know, like not even fighting for a cause. It's just chaos. Let's go.
Yeah, it's not about,
right.
It's about sending a message.
Right. Just level everything and
burns.
Yep. Yeah. And there was a bit of imagery in the OP that I absolutely loved, because this is like my favorite mythical creature probably.
Yeah.
And that's of the Phoenix.
Yep.
From the ashes, the Phoenix rises, right? That's there's lots of parallels to just generally the way that society turns, and the passing on of the torch to future generations and things like that, and good stuff.
And MHA is all about that with regards to passing on the torch with one for all and everything. And they even show that in the imagery here, where the flames go up, they're following the shining star. All Might kind of reveals his old form
and then
superimposed over
shows
Endeavor.
and shifts to Endeavor, which I loved.
And then it shows them all fully powered up, our three boys just chasing
Going after
that flame. That's
but
not necessarily just Endeavor, but also the one pushing him forward,
sure,
the one giving
Hawks,
him wings.
the wings, But also, what will the ashes be? Will it be the ashes of Hero Society? Will it be the ashes of the Meta Liberation Army and the League of Villains?
And maybe Endeavor and Hawks?
Sure,
one or the other.
Yeah. People die in war. Shocking, I know, but
and that's kind of why we made the comparison to Night Eye with Hawks as well. Is that there were quite a few potential, I would say actually pretty subtle death flags thrown in here for him in this episode, much more so than there's ever been for him.
Right. In addition to just it being something where it's like seeing, I'm trying to picture the idea of this arc concluding, because this is going to be clearly one of a
snowball
super big
arc.
I think
it's
so
a snowball arc that brings out the bigger conflict. It's 4 months away, so we can basically say, it's not going to be within this core because that's 16 weeks. So, you know?
Right. It's
that joke, you know.
It'll probably be at the end of this season where it's all right, now it's happening, and it's oh shit, because that would be such a cliffhanger for a season, right?
Yeah.
But I don't see Hawks surviving this, because I feel like if anyone's going to die here, it would be him, right?
I have a weird image that it's not that either of them necessarily will die in this arc, but due to this, both potentially Endeavor and Hawks could have to die in order for this to change. The difference, though, is that Endeavor just had his big watch me moment, and that has to carry forth long past this. And him losing Hawks could be the equivalent of
his wings getting clipped.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And going into a war, Endeavor will be perfect for that.
In some ways, dude, none of them are perfect for this.
Okay,
that's the point.
No. Well, yeah. You would hope that no one would ever have to go into something like that, right?
Oh God.
But flares can be very helpful for coordinating movements, shall we say?
Yeah, on a thematic level, I get what you're saying.
And also,
but the instant Endeavor sees 20 villains staring him down, and he incinerates them, burns them alive. He is just a sponsored villain, basically.
Oh, totally.
Yes, and that's I think the dark point they could take this. And
and that's why war is so interesting in stories, because if anything, and this is something that's a personal peeve of mine.
Oh, sure.
But anytime, and this happens a lot of the times in young adult fiction, I feel like, where you want to have them rising up and upsetting the established balance and stuff. Always winning. But it's there's injustice out there and we're gonna fight against it. But then they just end up slaughtering people like crazy, and it's not robots or something like that indirection, but it's actual people, and it's how many of them are actually as bad as the figurehead that you're really fighting against, and
what are you creating by this whole
exactly what are you creating, and I can't wait to see how these characters are twisted and broken by it. We saw Bakugo crying in the OP. What in the hell is about to happen?
Yeah, a lot. What I would say is about to happen is that the Meta Liberation Army is going to have their first kind of act of here we are, here's what we're about, here's what we want, here's our demands, that kind of stuff. And the person who's going to suffer the most for this will be Endeavor. I would assume as much, just because he's the number one hero.
Sure.
I would also think that because of some of the aspects in which this will boil down into a fight, I think that there are a lot of people that will not see coming how strong and effective these boys are, for instance.
Oh, totally.
At dealing with villains and stuff.
That's the problem.
Or just with others with quirks,
If child soldiers couldn't actually cause damage, you wouldn't have to deal with them. You could just ignore them.
Oh boy.
But what happens when they do? And what happens when there's the reverse? Shigaraki, yes, he's more of a, teenage, type, older teen. He's older than Deku, right?
Oh, he's in his 20s, definitely.
Oh, yeah, sure. Or maybe 19 if we wanted to go with anime age.
He's at least 20. There's no way he's that young. Yeah.
But either way, this could easily have just happened a few years earlier, right? And he could be them. And that's
forget our main characters. There's just going to be kids that are wanting to be heroes who are going to be looking up to their heroes and going, I don't want to be you.
Yeah. When suddenly Endeavor's like, oh, I'm sorry, maybe you shouldn't watch me right now. And then
yeah, Jesus, man.
Yeah.
Okay. So, bringing things a little bit back here, we have ourselves the conflict primarily being that Hawks is like he's double dealing with every single like faction involved here. He's very much trying to make sure that he can keep everything on the up and up and, successfully navigate things with the pros.
Right.
And thus he ends up getting the messages passed along to Endeavor, which is really, really a fun dynamic of this episode to have Endeavor walking around with our three main kind of story boys, if you will, from the school, and them all having their unique takes on Endeavor, and Bakugo be like, "You're kind of cringy." It was just like that
was amazing. That was so good.
That is so good.
It's that kind of stuff that really makes me be like, yes, Bakugo does have hope, because at some point he's going to be thinking, Endeavor's kind of cringy, and then he's going to look in a mirror and be like, oh shit,
dude,
saying I'm Lord Explosion Murder, wait
a minute,
oh,
self-awareness, oh no. Yeah. In some ways, Bakugo is going to realize how similar he is to Endeavor in some ways, something that is funny enough, Jacob and I were talking about that in season 2.
Oh, sure.
Back when we just met Endeavor, basically.
Yep.
So, and it wasn't just the fire and explosions and all that.
Although that helps.
That helped, yeah. But also just the idea of, Todoroki, Shoto, he's going to be in all this as well, watching his dad.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot that they could go through here emotionally, and that's just really exciting. Then also, Deku, who has the idea of the number one hero who's always been All Might up until recently, being this guy, someone that he's now realizing is different.
Right,
He's
he
not
remembers
the same guy.
season 2 Endeavor, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was his major interaction with him. And I love that they brought that up here, because, yes, even though from the audience perspective, it's been years since since that part came out, right? One,
it wasn't that long ago.
It hasn't been that long ago in universe, and from Deku's perspective, that's who this guy is.
Right.
Right?
And he could just tell from his gait and his countenance, something's different.
He chose to actually turn off the fire when talking with us and stuff. Does he have this thing called restraint now that he's acquired,
Yeah, does he have respect a little bit, for us? This is really exciting. Now, I loved that there was also this kind of like overprotective father thing where he's like, Shoto, are these the friends that you've chosen to...
You've been making bad choices.
Bad choices, my son, yes.
Right.
And it's hilarious, but the problem is that it's all wreathed around, yes, pun intended with the flames and all that, of this was the dad that fucking abuses his kid who's right there in front of him. Now, Shoto has not necessarily forgiven him.
Oh, no.
But is willing to watch and wait.
Yep.
And I'm really excited for all this, corruption in Hero Society and the destabilization of society within the confines of also just a simple hero organization interacting with some students. One of the ways in which that could also destabilize if the conflict gets really personal.
Yeah, so let's actually just count up, since we're in Intrigue Land here, right?
Yes, Intrigue Land Central.
Now, I'm going to mention a bunch of different parties here to kind of do a tally. But that doesn't mean that they're all working against each other. But
they're all, completely separate.
Right, exactly. But we've got League of Villains. We've got Meta Liberation Army. We've got upper echelons of Hero Society that are like the ones interacting with Hawks and stuff, right? Then we've got UA teachers and pros and all of that stuff, right?
Is that Hero Society in general?
Oh, sure, I'd call that Hero Society. And then we've got the students.
And we got the students, yep.
Right? That's
five. Oh my god. Did we miss any?
Right, wait.
There's subsets within these 5, basically.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. And then so as far as how complicated things could get, it can get very
very
complicated.
heckin' complicated.
Like, to say nothing of the whole idea that, when the whole idea of civil war is brought up, then, well, you have to deal with the fact that you might be fighting against, like, a brother or a cousin or a long lost distant son that you forgot about.
Or if you have to pretend that person that you know is in the Meta Liberation Army, you don't know, so when you go on hero work with them, you don't, like...
Sure.
Give off weird vibes or something.
Yep.
So like Sliding Go, for instance, these boys now, if they bump into him again and Deku gives them here's the rundown, they're like, or Shoto's like, like,
right.
They could have that awkward moment where Bakugo's like, there's that like chin bastard again, and Deku's like, shut up, Bakugo. Like,
yeah. Thankfully, they don't know any of the faces of people actually in it yet, which is
true.
helpful because some of them would not be able to keep a straight face.
But speaking of like faces and info and all that, the fact that they were like, no, Hawks has access to the good stuff for us. What are the kinds of things that the Meta Liberation Army has probably been given intentionally by the upper echelons of Hero Society to be like, here's some stuff that will satisfy them. Take this. But what's the stuff they probably needed to give in order to prove that Hawks is really, really on their side?
There's the stuff that the Meta Liberation Army knows. Yeah. There's the stuff that the Meta Liberation Army knows that they know. There's the stuff that the Hero Society knows that they know. And then there's the stuff that Hero Society doesn't know they know.
Right. Because Hawks could be needing to a little bit, and I'd almost love if this was actually something they intentionally told him. They're like, try to do a little bit more than what we give you.
Like,
give away a little bit more.
Yeah,
but
let
we
it be
trust
a little
your
rough,
discretion. Yeah, exactly. We trust your discretion to essentially break our own rules that we give you,
that
so
way
that you don't get your cover blown.
Right. That way it's truly believable. Right.
And that we really don't know what you know entirely.
Right. And then maybe just give us status updates once in a while, as much as you can, of like,
yeah.
Oh, I had to also give them this thing. Okay, we can work with that.
They suspect him so much, and I love that this is the case in this Hero Society once Intrigue comes into play, that people with quirks, especially like Hatsume Mei, being able to just make shit because she's smart and she has a quirk that somewhat helps with that, with being able to see like micro little stuff, things like that.
Yeah.
They put just a bunch of devices on him to just track, monitor him. The whole thing of you panicked when you were about to get black coffee, being like, we know what you're doing.
Right.
That's the kind of thing of where it's like, what?
Yeah, and that's probably
they could
something...
probably have something monitoring his heart rate to make sure he's not lying, and then he has to go and do his meditation to train so that when he lies, he actually maintains a semblance of sanity. I was all set up for that. It's all set up for that joke. Yep.
But yeah, it makes sense for them to have that on Hawks because he's the number 2 hero, right? He would have access to a lot of private information potentially about the comings and goings of heroes and how things are working and what they know and all sorts of stuff.
In fact, he might know more than people like Endeavor because he probably had to tell them, oh, no, I'm already a double agent for them trying to get into the League of Villains. Like he probably just said that to be like, yeah, I'm trying to do that. Like, he might not have, but just the idea of being like, what do you do? I'm actually like the equivalent of like
usual stuff,
secret agent for the heroes and stuff.
It's the I can't disclose right now, but you understand. Oh, sure, yeah. And
we're still gonna put devices on you. Yeah.
And the only reason they don't do that stuff with Endeavor is because one, anyone would be able to tell when Endeavor's lying about something, right?
Shoto!
Right. But two, and this is something that I love that we got this episode, we got to see Endeavor's agency.
Yes.
And God, the fact that they answer 100, they do 100 responses a day.
Right?
Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That is insane.
30 sidekicks just in the building at one time.
Right.
That means that there's probably about, 75 to maybe 100 already just out and about.
When I think about the scope of what they would be responding to, and granted, some of them could be like, oh, my dog, or my cat stuck in a tree, right?
They're like, we'll pass that on to someone else.
Right, pass that to another agency. But if it's like serious like issues and things, that's a sizable portion of the country. Like that is insane. Like,
it's a company.
They are the number 1 hero agency for a reason.
Now, I don't know if that's confirmed that they're the actual number 1 agency because I don't think they track that.
they mentioned that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They do more work specifically.
Right.
Yeah, but Hawks has his own agency that's also pretty big deal as well. So this is really crazy. But seeing things like this where it's like, oh, a hero agency, that's just a company.
Yeah.
That's a corporation. Oh,
I mean,
Japan, I see where you're... gotcha,
Well,
gotcha.
yeah. They are powerful
consolidated
tools.
too much power.
They can do potentially very good things,
Right.
and also
And
some very bad things.
And if they all get essentially a form of centralized, kind of payment of sorts.
Oh, sure, because they're definitely government sponsored and at the very least sanctioned, because it's a form of privatized police force.
It is.
that
It
you
is
outsource
actually.
and things like that.
It is actually that. Yeah.
Now, because you up the PR of it basically, so
lot.
that it's the and you'd have to, right?
Otherwise, people wouldn't pay their taxes for it, or
right,
they'd try to vote it out.
Right, because they'd be terrified of it, right?
Yeah.
The idea of a privatized police force, that sounds scary as hell. But if it's the, hey, no. We're gonna find you the best of the best. You're gonna know their names, their likes. You're gonna know their.
You can see them talking on their phone with their girlfriends,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
Hogs?
Favorite
I
food
can't
and all that
tell
stuff.
you.
They're gonna be celebrities. It's not that there's a privatized police force. It's that we have Hollywood coming and making sure you're safe. Like that's isn't that great?
I love how much we're getting of recently and just superhero stuff. It's just more The Boys kind of stuff where it's I mean,
and of course MHA's not going to go full The Boys,
no,
right?
no.
But just the idea that nasty things happen in war. Has Hero Society ever gone to war? Do you have Geneva Conventions?
Well, right. But even if it's not literally battle lines being drawn, Jacob, you can have a war against the citizens by the privatized police force that start enforcing just really draconian, disgusting, and just also illegal things.
Oh, totally. Well, and since when has legality ever been a
No,
thing?
totally. But the part that's slightly where people are like, oh, it's okay with it, is it that it's illegal?
Right.
Is that, oh, we have a law for that, so it's suddenly okay. It's like, whoa, wait a minute.
That's an okay place to start.
Yeah, but let's talk about whether or not this is good for maybe human rights, or just
and that's why it's so necessary for us to then follow these young people as they're the new generation.
Yep.
Because then they can see the things that the current Hero Society have been doing that have been working, the things that haven't been working. And then with this new problem that rises up that the current Hero Society will not be able to actually address, because if they could, it would have been done already.
Yep.
Then we will get to see the story of how they rise to the occasion, how they deal with it, hopefully in as best a way they can.
Yeah.
There will be plenty of scrapes and bruises and fallout and sacrifices and things lost along the way, right? And that's what will make it a fun and engaging narrative. But then, eventually, well, this is the story of Deku becoming the greatest hero.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. First episode of a new arc.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
By the way, just for the sake of clear communication and understanding with you, our audience, this is not the kind of thing that we will make a habit of doing.
Yeah.
It's more of just we were so excited about the idea that, wait, holy shit, that was actually a place for the Tibetan Liberation Army and stuff.
Yeah, we were confused by that, so we went and rewatched that part, and we're like,
it's like,
oh boy, we completely
boy.
missed that.
We just had to talk about it.
The funny thing is that even after the episode had been watched, I was like, Jacob, there's stuff going on in that scene, and I'm not getting it. So we went and I was looking at it, and I still missed it.
Right.
I still missed it, with I zooming in, looking at it.
Yeah.
And I just missed to go back all the way to the beginning when Hawks flies in and had that little bit of dialogue there. So
for any creatives out there, if it can feel boring and unnecessary to do this, but if you ever want there to be a thing that's like a reveal or like a twist or like this all is not what it seems, or doing something a bit different, or things like that, especially if you have 5 different intrigue parties potentially.
I mean, the students is a bit of a
sure.
Yeah.
But having a point that's like a crisp, clear, this is who this group is, you know, things like that can be super helpful, especially if there are people that double dip on which group they're in.
Right. And this is definitely thematically appropriate because you can tell what type of arc they're setting up by doing it this way. However, it is still really helpful in order to have us be all at the baseline together in a nice and simple way to start there, then bridge out and get things a lot more complicated. But all that being said, this is a really engaging switch off from the last arc.
Right. So the previous arc, you know, it had its moments, right?
Yeah.
But that wasn't what I got excited about MHA about. This is not what I got. This is not why I got into MHA. But oh my god, I am so excited for it.
So, y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction discussion, we'll wait till next week.
That's right.
Watching that then. But be sure to check out in the description below for our Patreon. You can watch the full-length version of the reaction there, and any support gets you access to our Discord, where you can chat with us in the community there about MHA as a show. There's stuff for you MHA manga people, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We do streams every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.